Okay, so we are going to start talking today about how to solve quadratic formulas. So we have spent the past 4 lessons, talking about what makes something quadratic. And again, something is a quadratic equation if it has a what? That x squared. If it's in standard form, it has an x squared. And when you graph it, what does it look like? A parabola, right? Okay. So when you have a linear equation typically just has one solution at a time. So for example, when you have something like this, y equals 2x plus 4, and you want to find a solution for it, you would find some ordered pair that works for this. So say for instance, if x equals 7, then your solution would be what? Y would have to be what? 18. All right, so that means if x is 7, y is 18, and that would be a solution to this linear equation. When you graph a linear equation, what does it look like? A line. All the points on that line are solutions to the equation. So again, if you had x equals 4, you would get a solution. It would just be different. If x equals 4, then your solution would be 12, because 4 times 2 is 8. 8 plus 4 is 12. Okay? So those are solutions to linear equations. And when you plot a linear equation onto a graph, you get a line, and any point on that line is a solution to the equation. In a quadratic equation, the solution to a quadratic function are the zeros of the function. So before we start, let's review, what are the zeros of a function again? Where it touches the x-axis. So you can either have, like in this case, how many do we have? 2, because it crosses the x-axis how many times? 2. You could also have how many? 1 if it just touches the x-axis, or you could have 0. So there's either 2 solutions, 1 solution, or no solutions to a quadratic formula. And in this case, there would be 2 solutions. And those solutions would be 1, 0, and what would the other one be?
1, 0, 0,
Negative 1, 0. Good. So those are our 2 solutions to that quadratic function. So we have 2 in this case. And then Cecilia said we could also have 1 if the quadratic did something like this. In this case, what would the solution be? 3, 0. And then in this case, what would the solution be?
0.
There'd be no solution. You would just say no solution because it never touches. So then how could you figure that out? If I just gave you an equation like this, what could you do? What could you do to find the solution? Use the formula to do what? Find what? What formula? Negative b over 2a. What does that find? The x, which is the, people are doing this. What is this? Axis of symmetry. So you're finding the axis of symmetry, and then you find what? The vertex. And then you find the what intercept? The y-intercept. And then once you have that, you can do what with your parabola? You can graph it, and once you graph it, you can find the solutions because you should be able to tell where it crosses. So this is our formula, or this is our equation. I'm going to start doing exactly what Rodrigo said. So I'm going to do minus b, negative b over 2a. In this case, do I have a b? No, I don't. I have an a and I have a c, but I don't have a b, because if I had a b, what would the variable be with it? X, and there isn't one. So that means b is 0 over 2 times 2. So 0 over 4, which is just what? So then the first thing I do immediately is draw my dotted line at 0. So there's my axis. And then what do I do to find my vertex? Plug it in. What's 0 times 2? 0 minus 2. Negative 2. So my vertex is at 0, negative 2, which means right here. Okay? Now I can't find a y-intercept because I already have the y-intercept. So what should I plug in to find another point?
0.
I can't plug in a 0. I already plugged that in. 1. So I'm going to plug in a 1. I'm going to plug in a 1 because I need another point. What's 1 squared? 1. 1 times 2 is 2. 2 minus 2 is
0.
So another point is 1, 0. So I graph that. That's right here. And then how do I get my third point? I don't even have to plug in anything else. What can I do now? I can just reflect it because I have my axis. So if I go over 1, how many more do I go over? So here's my parabola. And how many solutions do I have now?
3. No, 2.
Only 2, because it's where it crosses the x-axis. So what are my two solutions? Negative 1, 0, and 1, 0. Okay? What you guys all just took me through is how we do these. You graph it the same way that we did on your quiz, on your all the work we did before. So that 3-step process. Step 1, step 2, and then step 3, which is usually plugging in 0, but sometimes you have to plug in a different one if you've already plugged in 0. Okay? And then once you plot it, you can see it either has 2 solutions, 1 solution, or no solutions. You're never going to have 3, because if it had 3, what would your graph look like?
A line?
It wouldn't be a line, because a
It'll
line.
go like this.
Yeah, it would have to go like another, like dip down. Okay? Which we'll look at, well, we won't. In Algebra 2 and pre-calculus, you'll look at those. We won't do those here. Okay? But you'll start talking about equations that have more than 2 roots. It is. Who said that? Matthew? Yeah. Okay, so let's do one more together. So what's step 1?
Negative b.
All right, in this case, what is that? 4 over
2 parentheses negative 1.
Good. 2 parentheses negative 1. How come the 4 is positive? Because it was negative here, so now it's positive. Okay, and then this negative 1, where did that come from?
There's an invisible 1.
There's an invisible 1 in front of the x squared. Good. Okay, so then what's 2 times negative 1?
Negative 2.
And so 4 over negative 2 gives me what?
2. Negative 2.
Negative 2. So there's my axis of symmetry. And I saw like no one do this on the test or quiz. Immediately put it in there. Don't wait. Don't do the other steps. Just draw your axis of symmetry. All right, that's step 1. What's step 2? Plug it in to which formula? The original equation. Okay, and when I plug it in, what do I have to put it in?
And that's plotting 2.
So what did I put it in there? When I plug that in, what did I put it inside? Parentheses. Do you have to do that?
No.
Yes. Yes, you do. If you do this, especially on a calculator, and you don't do the parentheses, what happens with the negative signs? They cancel out, and they shouldn't. Okay, so what's negative 2 squared? Positive 4, but it already had a negative sign, so it's negative 4. What's negative 4 times negative 2? Plus 8 minus 4. So what's negative 4 plus 8?
4.
4 minus 4 is 0. So our vertex is negative 2, 0. So here's our vertex. And then step 3, find my y-intercept. What do I plug in? 0. What's 0, 0? So then all I'm left with is negative 4. So my y-intercept is negative 4, so down here. And then which one do I reflect?
To the left.
I reflect this one to the left. Good. Because remember, the axis of symmetry should be where?
In the middle.
In the middle. So I don't want to reflect this one. I want to reflect this one. So how many did I go over?
2.
So how many more do I go over?
2.
So there's my parabola. It opens which way?
Down.
Is that right?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, good. How many solutions does this quadratic have? 1. What is it?
Negative 2. 0.
Good. Negative 2, 0. Great job, guys. If you just put negative 2, I'm not going to mark you wrong. Okay? If you just put the solution as negative 2, that's fine because this one will always be a what?
0.
A 0. Okay, so if you just put negative 2, that's fine. Okay, so when you're graphing them again, 3-step process, find the axis of symmetry, find the vertex by plugging that into the original formula, and then step 3, find the y-intercept by plugging in 0. If you've already plugged in 0, then what should you plug in step 3? 1. Or some other point, any point you want. I just always pick 1 because it's the easiest. Okay? And then you reflect over the axis of symmetry, over the dotted line. So that one should be in the middle. So if that's not in the middle, then is your graph right or wrong? Wrong. Okay? Are you going to know that if you don't put the dotted line on the paper?
No.
No. So when I say put the dotted line on the paper first, why do you think I do that?
You know if we're right or not?
Yeah, so you know if you're right or wrong. Okay, I guarantee you, again, I said this to, I think, Clarissa and Desiree yesterday, if you put the axis of symmetry, you won't get it wrong. If you don't put the axis of symmetry, you might not get it wrong, but you might get it wrong and have no idea. Okay, so just save yourself that easy check by just putting that dotted line. Okay, do you guys want to try one more together, or do you want to try them at your boards?
One more.
One more together? Okay.
Never mind.
Do you have to?
Because like on the test, the way I checked to see how if my work was right was because it was going downward, but the equation it opened upward.
Okay, that's another good way to check. That's good. So if the equation is supposed to open down and you have it opening up, then something's wrong, and you probably reflected wrong. That's another good check. Yep. And I guess then you can technically maybe get away with not doing your axis of symmetry, but don't. You're not like saving ink by not doing a dotted line. You're fine. I'll buy you a pen. All right. Okay. What's wrong with this equation to begin with?
It's not in standard.
It's not in standard form. I need it in standard form, which means what does it need to look like?
Y equals.
Yeah, y equals. Not mx, so that's linear form. So that's perfect if we were linear, but since we're quadratic, it has to be the x squared first, then the x, then the number, right? So I could move 2 things over, or I could move 1 thing. So which should I move?
One.
Just 1 thing. So that means to move a positive 4x, how do I move it? Minus 4x, minus 4x. So my new equation is going to look like what?
X squared.
X squared
Minus 4x.
minus 4x plus 5. Diego, how come you put this one in the middle? Because it's supposed to be. The one with the x is supposed to be in the middle, okay? So if you write x squared plus 5 minus 4x, is it wrong? No. But is it in standard form? No. Okay, so step 1. What would be negative b over 2a here?
Negative 4 or positive 4.
Positive 4.
2.
2 times
1.
1. Great. What's 4 over 2? 2. So what should I do now? No, I'm not plugging it in yet. All right, do my axis. Okay, so there's my axis of symmetry, and now I'm going to do what? Plug it in. Is it as important that I use parentheses now?
No.
It's not as important now. How come? Because the 2 is positive. Should I still do it?
Yeah.
Yes, because if I make it a habit, then I will always do it. So I'm going to still put my parentheses in, but just remember it's not as important now. Okay, so we've got 2 squared minus 4 times 2 plus 5. What's 2 squared?
4.
What's 4 times 2?
Negative 8.
What's 4 minus 8?
Negative 4.
Plus 5.
Negative, no, 9. Negative 9.
Negative 4 plus 5.
Positive 9.
Positive
1.
1. Good. Positive 1. So then my vertex is 2, 1. So I go 2 and then up 1. And then what's step 3? Find my y-intercept by plugging in 0, or just looking at the equation. Which one is always your y-intercept? 5. Okay, it's always the c. Because remember what happens when you plug in 0 to both of these? They go away. All right, so 5 is always your y-intercept. So then I just go up to 5. And then where do I reflect? To the right of the line, right? How many over?
2.
2 more over. So here's my parabola. So what's my solution? No solution. Why? Cecilia? Doesn't ever touch the x-axis, so there's never a solution. Okay? Remember, the only solutions are where it touches this axis right here. If this parabola never touches it, there just are no solutions. Remember how in linear functions we could end up, like when we had 2 lines, and it would be no solution if they were parallel because they never touched each other? That's what we're talking about here, basically. This never touches the x-axis, so it's never going to give us a solution. Okay, so I have a couple, I put for you guys, if you flip over your slides, you'll notice that's it, that's the end of this lesson. So you have a couple options. There's 4 problems here, and there should be at least 4 practice slides. I think 5 because you want one for your exit ticket. So you've got a couple options. You can either graph them at your boards, or you can use the coordinate planes. I know sometimes it's really hard when you draw your own coordinate plane, but if you want to work at the boards, go ahead. You're doing all 4 of these. If you do not work at the boards, when you're done working at your seats, put your answers up on the board so I can check them there. Okay? So you're just writing down then your answers, which are either going to be, there's either going to be 2, 1, or no solutions. So you should never have more than 2. Okay? And 2 is when it crosses twice. 1 is when it touches the x-axis, and no is when it never touches. Okay? So you guys have a bunch of blank coordinate planes if you want to use those, and you're doing those 4.